So today we're going to be doing a story time of how I came out as transgender and just my transgender journey as a whole. The age of around 5, I would say, I knew I was completely different than the other kids I was going to school with because I loved everything girly. I loved Barbies. I loved putting t-shirts and towels on my head and pretending I had long hair. Any game that we would ever play growing up, like I always had to be a girl. Even a video game, I always had to choose a girl. So I felt definitely very different, but I didn't really realize how different I felt until I would go to school and start to get picked on because I was significantly more feminine than the other little boys running around. So when I started to get picked on a little bit more in elementary school, I decided to start to keep all of that stuff very inward. So I would project as best I could, and then inside I would feel completely different. I mean, I could never help my voice. I could never really help my mannerisms. I was just very feminine. So growing up in the 90s, there was no talks about what being transgender was. This was just something I felt like I was going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. So let's fast forward a little bit. It was 2011 or 2012, either one of those. And there was a transgender YouTuber who I watched. And at the time, she was not transgender. She was just like a very feminine gay man who wore dresses, makeup, like really presented female. But again, there really was no label. So when she came out as transgender back in 2012, it hit me like a brick wall. I was like, wait a minute. This describes me way more than being gay, because my friends who were gay, my parents would say, well, why can't you be more like them? I mean, they don't want to carry around purses and wear makeup and, grow their hair out. Like they are just feminine, but they are men. And I was like, Mom, Dad, like I am not a gay man. Like I am transgender. And I was the rough age of 19, so fairly young, but obviously over the age of 18, which is good. This was something that I needed to do for me. So for a long time, I did not have their support. I went all on my own. I had insurance through them, but I went all on my own to the doctors. I made the appointments. I called the insurance companies. I mean, I did everything that I could to, transition. Like I put in the work. I didn't really have their support for a long time. I mean, it took them years. Gigi Gorgeous here on YouTube came out with a documentary, and it had her whole family in it and her father and talking and stuff like that and just really explaining the whole thing. And I sat my parents down and made them watch it. And then there was another documentary. It was by National Geographic, and it was a documentation on being transgender and kind of the studies behind it and kind of how it happens and what it really looks like. And after I showed my parents those two documentaries and they sat with it, it completely changed their perspective on me and me transitioning, because I'll never forget my mother one time told me, we were in the dollar store and we saw a trans person. My mother said, if you ever decide to do that, I'm disowning you and you will never be a pretty girl. I'll never forget it. Now, yes, I understand back then it was more fear coming from them because my father was already fearful that me being an overly feminine individual and wearing makeup and, drawing attention to myself in that way was going to somehow give me negative backlashes by either getting physically harmed or bullied or X, Y, and Z. And the thing is bullying has never really affected me in that way. I mean, I am an internet content creator. I have heard and I have seen so many comments written about me that like there's nothing new that I haven't already heard before. And I went on this, self journey, and I really loved myself for who I am. And for a long time, I didn't, until I decided to transition. I did not love myself. I did not feel at home and at peace in my own body until I decided to transition. So fast forward to 2018, and I'm going in for my first surgery ever. So I got a breast augmentation done, and I was scared, but at the end of the day, my parents were like really supportive. My father, it's not that he's not supportive, but he always wonders why I go and get like cosmetic procedures done and why I have lip filler and Botox and surge and I look the way that I do. He's like, you don't need to do all that to be beautiful. And I don't do all of it to be beautiful. Like I do all of it to, feel at home and in peace in my own body. So my dad has always been super supportive, but he doesn't love all the surgery. Like he's not gung-ho about all the surgery. I go in 2018, surgery, perfect. And then I waited a while to tell my grandmother because me and my grandmother have a very like close and special bond. And I was really afraid that if I told her that she would disown me or not want anything to do with me because my grandma like is very religious, goes to church every week. I mean, prays on her rosaries, all that stuff. But the one thing I'll say about my grandma, she has never used religion to judge or be hateful to anybody else. Her mom was a nun, and her mom would always complain about people like that and say that they were such hypocrites. So when I told my grandmother, we were sitting in the train station. Our DMV is in the train station. So we were sitting there and I said, I think it's about time I tell her because I look extremely different and she probably has no idea what's going on. So I sat her down and I told her, and she told me she will love me no matter what. And she has been the most supportive grandparent could ever ask for. She doesn't misgender me ever. She never dead names me. Something that took me a minute to really sit with and realize is that everyone is going through a transition, not just me. My parents, my siblings, my friends, my family, everybody is going through a transition. So I told her, supportive. So then I had my first surgery. And then I was like, you know what? I don't know that I'm going to do more. I don't know how much more surgery I want to do. Fast forward to 2023. I had gained some weight and I didn't really love the way my body looked. I didn't feel that it looked super feminine because I was a gymnast growing up from the age of 5 all the way till 18. And I had, just a muscular-ish body. Like I never really had much fat in my legs or my hips, none of that. Like I just developed through puberty, like being a gymnast. So to get the body that I wanted and that I would feel most comfortable in, I decided that I was going to have a BBL. So I went down to Miami, which dangerous, I know, but I went down to Miami and I got a BBL. And ever since then, I have never felt more gender euphoric in my entire life. I feel like my body, my face, everything about me just radiates femininity. And regardless if people know that I'm trans because either, they saw my stuff on the internet or they're quote unquote clocking tea. All that I know is that I feel 100% safe and comfortable in my own body. That is my story time of how I came out as transgender. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love all of your support and I will see you guys in my next video.